this movie is all about science and humanity. Now, we're here to celebrate, obviously this is a Canadian premium movie, many of us have been waiting a long time to show and to see, but we're also here to celebrate the career of an incredible filmmaker, John Landis. He's absolutely shifted the shape of pretty much every genre he's dabbled in. With the Michael Jackson Thriller video, he reinvented the modern music video. With the Kentucky Fried Movie, the ultimate precursor to what's now the video mashup thing. What? He's just so fly. The lineage goes to things like Kentucky Fried Movie before anyone was doing that type of deal. And then, of course, films like Animal House, The Blues Brothers. He brought commercial, intelligent, grossed-out comedy filmmaking to a totally new height. That, again, we see imitators every week today. Anyways, his career is extraordinary. He's worked with some of the most incredible talents. He pretty much discovered Rick Baker. There's been Rick Baker monkeys in like so many of his films, and they're all awesome. Rick Baker, the effects artist, come on! I'm just getting tired. Instead of rambling, I'm going to let some images speak better than any of my rambly words could ever.
I was just thinking if you knew nothing about my films and you saw that, you'd go, what the fuck? Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. What happens now? Am I introduced to the movie or what?
I thought, yeah, you can talk about Burke Hare, but before that, we'll bring up the actual award. We'll come right to the chase then. So please, Stephanie, if you want to bring up the award, it's sculpted by effects artist CJ Goldman.
Tell you that I've received awards all over the world, and I'm convinced that people think, gee, this is really ugly. Let's give it to John Lee. But this is really beautiful. Thank you. That's so nice. When I was in pre-production, this is random, but when I was in pre-production on American Werewolf in London in 1981, I went to Pinewood to visit my friend Ray Harryhouse. And he was working on Clash of the Titans, and I spent the day watching him and Jim Danforth animate Pegasus. So this is so cool. Burke Hare was made last winter. As you can see, it's fucking freezing. You live in Montreal, so you're like... I grew up in Los Angeles. So I thought of snow as like a luxury. You go to visit, and you ski, and you play, and then you go home. And I've now made movies, oh gosh, all over the United States, and Canada, and Mexico, and Europe. And I gotta tell you, when you're shooting in the summer, the winter, in Norway, or in London, or Chicago, or something, you think, these people are out of their fucking minds. They live here? Anyway, but cold photographs, did you know that? Cold photographs, and I actually think it helped Burke Hare, because Edinburgh was fucking freezing. And all that blue, that's their real color. This movie has a wonderful cast. I have found 14 films based on Burke Hare. American, British, French, German, Italian, Spanish. All of them are horror films. So this is not a horror film. This is a romantic comedy. And what attracted me to it, Of all the films, by the way, ironically, this is the most historically accurate. And if you wait till the end, the real William Burke is in this film. In any case, how do I explain? What appealed to me about the movie was to tell this true story of these despicable, loathsome, cold-blooded killers and make them charming, leading, attractive men. And I thought, that's really perverted. And so that's this. And I have a wonderful cast. If you want questions, you can ask me later. I guess we're coming back. So I'll let you see the movie. I hope you like it. I'm thrilled with this. Thank you so much. I said, gee, I'd love to hear bagpipe do swing music. And they were like, whoa. And Joby Talbot, our very gifted composer, said, well, we could do that. And he wrote that, like right away. They'd never played it before. So when you just heard that Burke swing, these guys, it's like bagpipes. Those are bagpipes doing the jazz. It's completely nuts. And no one ever, the producer hated it, this guy. And I said, well, fuck you. And then we had a big fight. And finally I said, I'll put it on the end credits. And he didn't care because everyone walks out.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, this is your first feature in 12 years. I think I can say on behalf
It's the first theatrical
feature.
Yeah.
film. No, of course. I mean, the television work is amazing.
Right.
There's a big screen release. I just want to say, I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the entire audience. Damn, it's good to have you back, John.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk maybe a little bit about getting this production mounted and what it was about the film that made you...
Do you know an English filmmaker named Gorinda Chadha? She made Bend It Like Beckham. She was a student of mine when I was teaching at, what the fuck is it called? Bob Redford's thing. They have like a festival. Thank you, teaching at Sunday. And it's
your little niche thing.
Years ago. And anyway, so her offices, she's now very successful, and her offices are at Ealing Studios. Ealing literally being the only studio in Great Britain I never was at. So almost 2 years ago, I was in London, and Ealing, what's her name? Gorinda called me and said, let's have lunch, come out to Ealing. And Ealing's the only film studio in London. Everything else is out of London. Ealing, you take the tube to Ealing, get off, there's the studio. And Ealing is historic. Sir Michael Balcon made so many great films there, including the best portmanteau horror film ever made, Dead of Night. Was made there, but also in the 50s, they made a whole series of very black comedies. The Lady Killers, in which the entire cast has murdered one another by the end of the film. Or my favorite, Kind Hearts and Coronets, which is a very elegant film about a serial killer. They made a lot of The Man in the White Suit. They made a lot of really dark comedies. So anyway, I wanted to see it. It's where, after they went out of business, the BBC rented it. It's where all the Monty Python shows were shot. It's a historic place. So anyway, a bunch of guys bought this place, I think 15 years ago, as a real estate scheme. And they brought back Ealing Pictures. And I was there having lunch with Gorinda, and Barnaby Thompson, who's the boss, walked by, and Gorinda introduced him to me. He said hello, and then he stopped. He came back like this. He said, are you John Landis, the filmmaker? I said, yeah. He says, would you read a script? I said, for sure. So he went back in his office and he gave me this script, which he'd had. I think this script's 15 or 16 years old, and then went through various, and I read it, and what attracted me, honestly, it's not very commercial, but what attracted me to it was the real Burke Hare are loathsome scum. The real story is dreadful, and they are just the worst, the worst humans. And I thought the idea of making them charming, and especially like the evil, loyal, and hearted that you would care about. And it's not entirely accurate. We take liberties. The real William Burke was hanged. That is him, by the way. He was sentenced to be publicly hanged, dissected, and put on display. He's still on display.
The display was part of the sentence?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he's at the University of Edinburgh Anatomy School. He's in that box, and he's on display. He had pretty good teeth for that time. Anyway, what's interesting is that we took liberties. For instance, all the doctors got off complete scot-free. So Dr. Knox didn't go to America. He had a long career. He was also very important. Dr. Lister, you see at the beginning, the one with the bad breath, he was actually 10 years later. And also, Nicephore, the French photographer, he did do those photographs with Dr. Knox 11 years later. So we moved things around, and the last thing is the real William Burke disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Burke. They turned state's evidence against Hare. That's how they got off. They were just the worst people. And what is interesting that I tried to show, at that time Edinburgh had less than 250,000 people within a 5 square mile area. And between 30 and 50,000 people came to see him hang. Give you an idea of what a big deal it was at the time. And Dr. Munro's assistant was Charles Darwin when he was assistant. So there are a lot of, yeah, it's absolutely true. There's a lot of interesting stuff. And also, there's a speech that Tom Wilkinson gives as Dr. Knox. Dr. Knox created many surgical techniques that are still used. And what he says, when the potential to save thousands, maybe millions of lives, is true. So the movie has a lot of, the story's very interesting. And like with Burke and Hare, the way I present them, not the way they were, but you know, it's actually William Hare, Simon Pegg, who's so lovable and sweet. He's actually more culpable because he has his conscience and he knows what they're doing is wrong. Where William Burke is completely amoral. It's just business.
Isn't it the contrary? It's
William Burke. I'm sorry, you're right. I think they're both named William. I'll say Simon and Andy. How's that?
Yeah.
Andy, isn't Andy Serkis wonderful?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it was. It actually came in 2 weeks before filming. Oh, fuck. Who's Doctor Who, right? You know.
David Tennant.
David Tennant was signed, and it's a long story, but his agent fucked him. He double booked him.
Yeah.
Pilot at NBC, so not only did he not do the movie, but the pilot was shot and it wasn't picked up. But I don't worry about David. He's a wonderful talent. He's going to be fine. But so Andy was last minute, and Andy, in his career, of course, you know him as Gollum.
Yeah.
In Lord of the Rings movies. He's right now playing Gollum again, but he's also directing the second unit on The Hobbit.
Cool.
Yeah, he's got a great gig, and he was King Kong, of course, and all the motion capture stuff. He's in Rise of the, whatever the new Planet of the Apes, the cartoon movie, and that's also motion capture, and he's Caesar in that. So, what?
Toad. He was Toad in the X-Men movies.
No.
Okay,
No.
you knew.
That's fucking Darth Maul.
You know, he's got a long career. He's and the reason he always played villains. He's always tried to play Bill Sikes. He always plays creepy characters. I think King Kong was his most sympathetic role. And I met with him, and I liked him a lot, and I was kind of concerned. And then I looked at his credits, and I saw, do you remember a Mike Leigh movie called Topsy Turvy? Yeah. It's a brilliant film. Well, he had a big role. He played the extremely gay French choreographer. And I had no idea, because he's really funny. And I went, oh, you do that? You're hired. And I'm very happy with him. I think he's terrific.